Today's video, we're going to talk about criminal defense marketing and how to generate leads for $30 each or less using the strategy I'm going to share with you in this video, which has to do with running Google ads for your business, generating leads, not on an overall basis, that is people looking for a criminal defense attorney, but people looking for a DUI attorney, a drug offense attorney, and so on and so forth down the line. Also, running ads promoting content in this space, which nobody does, by the way, practically speaking. You can get people that need to know how to hire a great DUI attorney to contact you by putting together a simple ebook and then promoting that with ads, given that ranking that kind of thing organically anymore is too hard. It's much easier just to run the ads towards people that are already arrested for a DUI, and you can easily tap into this using Google's data and then getting an ebook in front of them about how to defend yourself against a DUI offense, of which that they want to ultimately have a good resolution from. And then you position yourself as the expert and you're able to get a client as a result of this. And at a really low cost, $10 a lead, when you know how to target your ads efficiently, like I just described. So with that said, I'm going to go through these methods that you want to use to run ads for your business, for your criminal defense firm, and then what the results are going to be, not only from a cost per inquiry or phone call standpoint or cost per form fill standpoint, but also a closing rate standpoint, so you can see just how profitable each one of these methods are that we use in our firm for a criminal defense attorney like yourself that wants to ultimately maybe do this for yourself, or of course, have someone like myself do it for them. That's up to you. I will go through what these methods are, but they're broken into three major categories of what I typically do now for a criminal defense attorney now that I've been in this market, and I understand how it works. Okay, so number one is you run ads on Google for the generalized terms, okay? Criminal lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, criminal defense attorney, all of those individual terms, which, by the way, about 20% of the market searches on Bing in this market. Okay, so you want to run whatever you're running on Google that I tell you to run here. You run it on Microsoft/Bing as well, because it's about 20% of the market searching there. I do want to stand corrected there. 20% of the leads you get will be from there. Because Bing has typically older people, there's less people searching there as a whole. The general public, 15% of people search on Bing. In this market, it'll be 5 to 10% of your clients search on Bing. But because there's so little competition, you can get a much bigger slice of that action than you would normally get on Google, even with the best ads. So I wanted to clarify that. With that said, okay, so in order to get a really low lead cost on Google, so instead of paying hundreds of dollars per lead, you're paying just a few dozen dollars per lead, or $30, $40, $50 per lead. You need to understand one thing. That is, Google gives you that low lead cost if and only if you show them that you're the best advertiser in your local market, all right? They want to see you have the best ad and best landing page in your niche market, in your local market. Otherwise, they're going to give all the benefits to the firm or the lawyer, if you will, that has it. And so if you go into Google Ads thinking you're going to put the bare minimum work together to target these keywords, you're going to pay $200 a lead instead of $30 a lead. The easy way to beat everybody in your market is really simple though. Anybody can do this. The simple way to do it is like this. You find a few hundred ways that people look for a criminal defense lawyer. And on a generalized basis, it's a few dozen. You write unique ad copy for every variation of every term, and you come up with different landing pages for every variation of every term. So in essence, if they're looking for a criminal defense lawyer, your ad, when they search for criminal defense lawyer on Google, will say criminal defense lawyer, and then it'll say in, and then the name of the city that you're in. And then it'll also say, I found works the best in this market, how many years of experience that you have. Okay? That's the formula that I found works the best. Now, why this actually puts you into in terms of the top 10 percentile in your market is because when somebody searches for something on Google, they don't want something close to what they searched for typically, and especially, or at least in this market, they want exactly what they came for. So if they're looking for a criminal defense lawyer and they see an ad that says criminal defense attorney, they know it's the same thing, but people are inherently tired, lazy, whatever when they're searching. So when they're scanning over the ads and deciding what to click on, they're more statistically likely to click on your ad if it exactly matches what they typed in. Okay? Furthermore, they're more likely to click on it if you understand the best way to run an ad in this market. And I just gave you the formula. So they want to know you to regurgitate back to them what they searched for. And they want to know that you cover their market, criminal defense attorney in Tampa, 25 years of combined experience. And so that you're covering all three things that they want to know. That is, do you do what they came to Google for? Do you cover their area? And can they trust you? And whereas your competition's not going to go and do those simple steps to make sure that what they typed in is what's on the ad. And you will, when they're trying to decide what ad to click on, they're going to click on your ad first. It's pretty simple. And then furthermore, 70% of the equation as to what you're going to be paying for a lead is going to come down to the landing page, or in other words, page you're taking them to on your site. First of all, if you don't have landing pages, you're already screwing up and you're going to probably not make any money. Potentially you could, depending on how good your homepage is, but by and large, you want to have dedicated landing pages for your website, for your Google Ads campaign here. Why? Because when somebody clicks on an ad from Google Ads, they want to find out the three things that I mentioned to you right away. Okay, and the quicker you communicate those three things to them, the more likely they are going to be to call or fill out the form on your page, bottom line. So what you're really doing on your landing page is just trying to be as clear as possible and as aggressive as possible, because they're there ready to call somebody. They don't need a bunch of background knowledge and research and data and read an ebook and all this other stuff. They just want what they want right then, which is to call a defense attorney right now. Okay? So, and then furthermore, you have to understand how to design a landing page the right way. Of course, this is something I can't really teach you in a short YouTube video in and itself or by itself. And even if I could, it still wouldn't have all the complete details you would want. The simple thing I can tell you is, number one, go to my landing page portfolio on my website at guaranteedppc.com and look at the landing pages I've made there as examples. But with that said, or you could just hire somebody who knows how to make landing pages really, really well. And not just any designer or somebody who says they can make landing pages. Somebody who's made hundreds of landing pages for Google Ads specifically. That is exactly who you want. And that has a proven track record of having conversion rates in this space above what an average company is going to get in this space. Which is not going to be the easiest to find, but it's worth it because if your landing page ain't right, you ain't going to make any money. Bottom line. So you just waste, everything else you do is a complete waste of time. Once you have the landing page right, that is the design and the layout right, because the layout of the page is important to make sure people get the information they need. It's not confusing and they get it in the order that they typically need it. Once you've done this, then you need to have a different page for every keyword, like I mentioned. So if they type in criminal defense attorney, you want to have a page that has that variation of that keyword in the headline itself. Beyond that, in order to instill trust, of course, you say how long you've been doing what you're doing, but you also want to have all the other credentials that you have, and most importantly, the average review rating that you have on Avvo, lawyers.com, and all the other places that you've been reviewed. Google Maps, Yelp as well. And what that does, when you show them your rating out of 5 on these websites, quicker than anything else, they see that you can be trusted, okay? They use that as a mental shortcut to decide if you're trustable enough in order to give you a call at least. And so when you display that at the top of your landing page before they have to scroll, it saves them time and therefore they're going to be more likely to call you. The more difficult it is for them to decide, the less people call. Bottom line, okay? So those are the fundamental things that you got to know in order to get a $30 lead cost in your market, in your local market. Now, the other things I wanted to mention here that you got to have also to make your ads work at this level. Number one is tracking. You got to have every single lead tracked. Every phone call, and I mean actual phone calls, not phone number clicks on the phone number, but actual phone calls that you get need to be tracked inside your account. As is, you need to track every single form fill that comes from your ad as well. Similar to that, you got to track, ideally, and this is not required to get to this lead cost, but you'll want it to get to the closing rate on the leads that I got at the very least. You want to also track whether a lead turns into a booked client or not and a predicted case value, and plug that data into your ad account so that the ad account eventually can optimize for better clients over time. Trust me, you want to do this, and it's not that hard to do. It's set up through something called offline conversion tracking, which you can do for your firm as well. Doing this, you're going to get better quality leads with bigger case sizes on an ongoing basis, to the point where your 20% closing rate that you'll get should go up to 25, 30, 35, and eventually up to close to 40% after you've built up a couple of years worth of data in your ad account and 100 or so cases in your ad account. You'll be surprised how much better quality the actual lead is going to get once you actually institute and import the right data about the size and the type of clients you're getting inside your ad account. So that's another key piece to the overall puzzle with Google Ads that actually makes it work, so to say. Beyond this, by the way, not that it's required, but you're also going to get a lot higher closing rate on your leads if you do good follow-up, okay? Somebody tells you on Google that they're looking for a criminal defense lawyer. No matter how good your landing page is, some people are going to leave before turning into a lead, or they're going to turn into a lead and they're just thinking over whether they're going to hire you or not. And that's where something called remarketing comes in. You put together ads that has all your credentials on it, how long you've been in business, what your rating is on lawyers.com, what your rating is on avo.com, and so forth. And you put these into different banner ads, and that shows up for them for the next 90 days after they've been to your website, after clicking on your ads. What that does is it basically forces the user to recognize that you're a big, lawyer in the area, and you're the most trusted lawyer in the area. And they'll become more familiar with you than any other lawyer in the area because they saw your brand and your name hundreds of times over the next 90 days while they were thinking it over, if they didn't hire somebody right away, which half of the people will, half of them will wait to actually decide who they're going to go with. So if you want the other half, and you want to get another half of the half, you need to go ahead and do this follow-up as well. This is something called remarketing or retargeting, as I mentioned, and it's easy to set up. But the key thing is, if you're paying good money to get people to the site and you're not following them up, you're throwing away half of your potential, literally speaking, okay, of the return you could get. If you would have followed them up the correct way with banner ads, I would also follow them up with YouTube ads so that if they're on YouTube, they're going to see your videos with you talking and displaying your expertise, and that'll cement everything in real well for you. Now, that all said, your $30 lead cost depends on, again, running your ads for a while. When you advertise at the beginning with Google, no matter how good it's set up, even if I set it up personally for you, having done this hundreds of times over the last more than a decade, it's still not going to produce a good cost per lead until Google sees that you've done an excellent job with your campaign and that you are crushing the competition. And therefore, they want to give you the best traffic. Google gives you the least performing part of the traffic in this space until you're proving yourself that you have better ads and better landing pages than your local competition. And so your lead costs can start out where you're paying $175 a lead, $200, $300 a lead, and it'll slowly creep down the longer you've advertised, assuming you've set up everything perfectly the way that I said. It'll get lower and lower and lower. In a typical market, this might take 12 to 24 months to get there, but it's certainly possible to absolutely get there if you go ahead and you do the steps that I gave you here. If you will, This right here is about 1/3 of the leads you can get in the market, okay? The other third is going to come from keywords that you're going to target, and with the same overall ideas and strategy that I gave you before in terms of the ad, the landing page, the tracking, but you're going to target keywords like DUI lawyer, weed lawyer, so on and so forth for different types of criminal offenses. And the great thing about this though is because there's so few lawyers that are going to target these keywords individually, DUI, yes. People targeting weed lawyer as a keyword, no. Some in some markets, but overwhelmingly, no. So what you do is you find every single keyword you can target, every which, you can find every variation pretty easily by going into using a tool like SpyFu or SEMrush or Google's own keyword planner tool that they give you free data on what people are searching for, and you target them all individually. So if somebody's looking for a weed lawyer, as unprofessional or tacky as that sounds, you have an ad that says weed lawyer on the ad. And guess what? They're going to click on your ad at almost 20% rate, whereas the typical lawyer that says criminal defense lawyer, he's going to get his ad clicked on at 3%. And that's the only difference there, because you were taking the time to communicate to the user on his or her level that they want to communicate with you on, and save them time and effort and energy figuring out if you can do what they need from Google or came to Google for in the first place. Similar to that, you need to take them to a landing page that has that on it specifically, not just sending them to a generic landing page like everybody wants to do because it's cheaper and it's easier. If you do it that way, you can get 30% of people easily to call you or fill out the contact form because it's so targeted to what the user wants. And as a result of that, you can pay $15 a lead. Ridiculously low lead cost, which the average lawyer targeting terms like this with the generic lazy approach that most lawyers are going to use, they're going to be paying $100 to $200 a lead. Okay? So that's how much of a difference this is going to make at the end of the day, doing it the right way versus the lazy way. Closing rates. 35% closing rates on the leads on top of it. Why? Because these people that type in more specific things, the more specific of search they make, the higher the closing rate on the leads that you get are going to be. So, in other words, when I say closing rate, the calls or forms you get, the percentage in which they close into an actual signed case that you get. 35% will close with that. Why? Because they're more serious, one. Two, they see if you have a page on your website saying you're a weed lawyer and that you work on a lot of weed cases or marijuana cases, they're going to be more likely to hire you. So that's also why you go through the trouble of setting this up this way. Whereas over here, you just look like one of everybody else. And you'll get the standard closing rates on the leads that come in, 20%. That's pretty much another third of what you could get from this market. Now, the other third of what you could get is going to be through marketing content. And you could do this through your own brand, or you could do it through a ancillary brand if you don't feel comfortable doing it for yourself. What I mean by this is, if you don't want to be seen as aggressively marketing content in your market for whatever reason, most companies shouldn't be afraid of this, but I realize in the legal space, people are afraid of what their peers are going to say or think or whatever. So if you don't want to market content to generate leads in your market, you can run a separate website that's unbranded to just generate contact details. So what we did in this market is we had an ebook that said how to get out of weed charges. We did it on a separate website so we could be very aggressive with the ebook topic, and we generated leads. Those leads, obviously, when you have someone's information, email, phone number of somebody who's downloaded an ebook like that, the question is who they're going to work with, unless they're going to work with the public defender, which in case, by the way that you fix this so that you get the quality of lead that you want is to do income-based targeting. I didn't talk about that here because it's, for the most part, not that important here, but for here, it's pretty important, at least for this market. So Google has a way, when you target people through demand gen campaigns, which gets your ads on Gmail and through YouTube, You can do income-based targeting. So you could target people in the top 50% of income demographic in your city only and exclude the bottom 50%, which that excludes a lot of potential as well, but the lead quality is much, much better. I would recommend at least starting there, top 50%. And so what you do though, is you run this so-called demand gen campaign, which is a good quality campaign that allows you to target people who are already in trouble and they're going to need a lawyer. So what you do is you set up something called a custom intent audience with Google, which allows you to target people with a campaign, a demand gen campaign in this case, of people who have searched for, weed arrests, what to do when arrested for marijuana, penalties for marijuana, all this generic stuff like this. Then with that audience, what that'll allow you to do is target anybody essentially who has gotten in trouble for marijuana. Ultimately, maybe somebody who is planning to do marijuana crimes, but hasn't gotten caught yet, if you will. But even then, they're eventually going to get caught, so why not go after them as well? It just takes a little bit longer to get them as a client, frankly. But if they've recently searched for anything like that on Google or on YouTube, Google has that person in a database. Now you can target them while they're, on YouTube and on Gmail, one or the other. So if the person searched for, if you wanted to be even more conservative, to have even higher quality leads, a person searched for how to hire a marijuana lawyer, you can now target them with this ebook. The ebook itself, like we had with this particular client of mine, it first starts with just educating. It's not a sales pitch, but it actually gives them practical advice about the people that do get arrested, how they get their sentences reduced, what are the techniques and methodologies that work there, and specifically for marijuana crimes. And then you say, or elude as the person's reading it, say, I know this to be the case because I had a case recently and XYZ happened. And so as they're reading it, they understand that this is a lawyer who wrote it and you actually have experience with marijuana cases. And at the end of it, it says, hope you, basically appreciated the information. If you have any questions or want to, I offer a free consultation. Here's my contact details, if you will. Another way, by the way, to do this, we didn't do it this way, but you could start off technically by saying, hey, I'm a, marijuana specialist lawyer that made this information so you would have what you need, and seeing what works in the space, and then get into the tips. That potentially could work better. I haven't had time to test that yet. Either way, the person that wants to read this obviously is already in trouble, or they're about ready to get in trouble, one or the other. But what I can tell you is when you run that type of campaign in a local service market, you should be able to get absolutely $12 lead costs like we got in the market that we were in, of which you're not going to get high closing rates on the leads like you had over here where the person's already ready to hire somebody. But you should be able to get a 4% closing rate on content like that. Why? Because you've simply narrowed yourself down as the provider of choice, because no other lawyer in your market is going to spend the time to break down what a person should do when they're arrested for marijuana in terms of hiring a lawyer and how to get out of the charges, ultimately. So you're now the only one in the market they want to hire. So that's 4%, by the way, is actually a really high number for content. That number, by the way, is just simply waiting for them to call you, not you calling them. If you wanted it higher than 4%, you certainly could call them. And that would be higher. You would get it closer to 10% if you wanted to call them. Using a software called quadruple, you could actually call the person who fills out the form that's necessary to get the ebook. So you have a landing page with the ebook on there. There's a form on there. There's fill out the form to get the ebook. And then this quadruple software, what it does is it calls your office, and then it says, you basically get a call in a robotic voice. It says, in order to, John Smith just filled out your, how to get out of weed arrest ebook. Press 1 to contact John Smith. And so while they're still reading the ebook, you get in touch with them. All right. And then as a result of that, you're able to strike a conversation with them, do the initial free consultation over the phone, and then hopefully get them to come in. You also can run this same ad on other networks. If you run a YouTube campaign, you can run a video campaign with the same information. So that if they recently searched for how to get out of a marijuana arrest or what to do when you're arrested for marijuana, you can have your videos show up for them on YouTube while browsing any other videos on YouTube. You can also target people on YouTube who are looking for anything related to marijuana arrests actively, which is even better, of course. Then with Google Display Network campaigns, you can target people that have recently searched for how to get out of a marijuana arrest as they're on other websites. You know, whether that be CNN.com, Forbes.com, whatever website that they're on, you can run a banner ad with that same message on it. But this is what they call a lead magnet, right? The topic of the material is such that if they read this material, they're a person either that's going to hire somebody in your market, either you or competitor, or either now or they're going to hire one in the future probably. And so you're just building up a database of people in order to sell to either now or in the future as a result. And this is how you're going to get a lot more leads. So a third of the market can be here. I would recommend going ahead and putting together an ebook for most of the main types of crime that people will get arrested for. You know, the drug charges, the battery, stuff like that. It's real simple. You put together a really good ebook like that for each one. Everybody in your local market within 30 miles of where your office is, anybody who's searching for how to get out of a domestic abuse charge, how to get out of a DUI, your information pops up for them, of which, by the way, there's good information on YouTube about this stuff already, but you can, just by showing up there, they'll also want to view your information. And if your ebook is written well, you can get a 4% closing rate on these leads. So for that matter, I just want to say your ebook, if it's not written well, this is not going to work either. A lot of people will say, oh, I can write this ebook myself. And maybe you're a lawyer, you can write well, but there's still something to sales copywriting that takes a specialized skill to do. And so what I would do is I would handwrite, a 1,000 to 2,000 words article on the crime at hand, referencing cases where you've seen things go right and wrong, and what you have experienced there, what your options are. And then I would hand that over to a sales copywriter, as they call it, and they're going to put it into a nice, pretty package. That's when they read it, they're going to be super engaged while they're reading it, so that they are just absolutely hooked. Because the key thing is, if they're not reading, if more than half of these people aren't reading the whole thing, you're not going to get no 4% closing rate on the leads that you're getting. Because they don't read the whole thing. They're not engaged enough with your brand that it'll work. So either you can't just get the information and just say, oh, we're good now. No, this has to be so good that they read the whole thing. And then they get to the end and they see your information there, they want to call. You could have a crappier version of what you're doing for the user that's not as engaging. You're just going to get less leads. And you can make up for it by having your office staff call the leads when they come in. Or you could just make the ebook more engaging, written by an actual trained sales copywriter, and just have them call you, which a good sales copywriter is going to be charging at least $3 a word. So for a $2,000 word article, even after you put up the rough draft of everything the thing should technically cover material-wise, it's still going to cost you $6,000 to put this ebook together just for the sales copywriter to make it so that half or more of the people get through the article once they've plugged in all their information. And then to get your lead cost at $12, that takes really dialing in the campaign. You're not going to get this right away, but after 6 months or so running your campaign with your conversion tracking set up, you can get it down there. So your lead cost is going to start out $50, 50 plus dollars, $100, and it's going to slowly creep down. So whereas that lead cost is really attractive and amazing, you don't get that all at once. So just know that going in as well. And then with all that said, Facebook. In regards to Facebook, I'll tell you a little bit about Facebook here, but if you want to learn how to do this stuff yourself and not hire a firm like mine, You want to subscribe to this channel because I have all the like micro details on how to set up a campaign the right way, a landing page the right way. I go over that on my other videos. And the best source of information for these topics is on this channel because I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm. And that's all I do. And I've been doing it over a decade. And I share what works and what doesn't work on this channel. So you should subscribe if you're serious about this actual topic and doing it yourself. Similar to that, I got a great blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog where you can find step-by-step advice on how to actually make money with ads. There as well, where I've documented the actual steps with screenshots, with everything you need to use them. So highly encourage you to check that out as well. If you have any questions, by the way, about anything I'm covering here, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. You can also reach me, by the way, 2 other ways, one of which is through the Discord group. You can find a link to the Discord group in the video description. I also can be reachable through my website at guaranteedppc.com. If you wanted to, by the way, have an expert handle this stuff for you, I've already done all the hard work. Number one, you can reach out to me and set up a coaching call and I can tell you and show you what to do. We can do that. Also though, I've got done for you services where I can set this all up for you start to finish and run it, of which our agency does not even charge any fees for our clients unless you get a certain minimum result on your campaign. So unless we get a certain amount of leads on your starting budget, there's no fee. Also, though, I sell templates. If you want to buy these templates from us, we'll sell them to you. You just copy paste those into your ad account. We don't sell them for $100 here. We sell them for a few grand. But if you want to buy the template and start there, that's another way to, sidestep all the work that's going to be necessary to set all this up for your business ultimately. But I have those available as well. Or if you're looking to get into something else or do something else, I've got templates for over 100 different niche markets that work. So, but with that said, in reference to Facebook, attorneys think Facebook is the thing to do because presumably Facebook is easier. You don't have all this stuff with keywords and having to have all these landing pages and whatnot. And it seems cheaper as well. And it is. But for this particular market, criminal defense law, I have found it's not worth doing. The case sizes are bigger, but running an ad to try to get somebody who's arrested that wants to hire a lawyer and that stumbles upon your ad offering criminal defense law services, it's hard to get them at the perfect time. It's similar to personal injury. What's the chances you're going to get in front of somebody who just had an accident? Okay. It's so difficult. Your lead cost is very, very high. You can do it, but if you don't want to pay $500 for a lead, when I say lead, I mean a qualified lead, or $1,000 for a qualified lead, then just stick with your Google stuff and go with your content marketing where you don't have any competition and you already can tap into Google's data that tells you who's already somebody who got arrested for a specific charge that you can speak directly to them on their level. Whereas on Facebook, you don't have that convenience. You have to just speak to the general public. And while you can create an ad that says you are a DUI attorney, and Facebook will do their best to match you up with somebody who's been arrested for DUI, it's still, your lead cost is really high. If you are going to do it, DUI is the one that I would do it for because it's the most common kind of thing, if you will, that to go after. And what I found works the best. And you're still paying a few $100 a lead for a qualified lead. Given that, yeah, you'll get cheap leads with Facebook, similar to the price as what we're talking about here for DUIs, but the lead quality is not nearly the same as what it is coming from Google. So why? Because it makes sense why that would be the case. Because if I had a DUI and I see an ad for a DUI lawyer, what is the chances I randomly stumbled upon that? I got the same level of motivation as me or someone like me searching for DUI lawyer on Google and then calling somebody. The lead's going to be 10 times better on coming from Google, especially the way that I mentioned setting it up, than it is going to be on Facebook. So you're paying $200-300 an opportunity instead of $20-30. And for some of these other, like if you're going to market yourself on a generalized basis, it can be over $500 from what I've seen. So do you want to do it? It depends whether you say that cost per opportunity is good, and paying $1,000 potentially for a case, whether that's good or not to you. So or at least I'm going to say, I'm doing these first, and then I'm going to do Facebook second. Particularly, or should I say, unless with Facebook you have a way to stand out from the crowd. And in this space, criminal defense, it's hard to be different, and you only can say so much stuff with your ads. In terms of ethics and all that, you can't say guaranteed this or that, or, you know, you have a high win rate, which this stuff would work. In a perfect world, you could use it. You can't, you know, stuff that we can't be as aggressive in this space. So if you could do that stuff, the person that's already contacted somebody would be willing to, kick them to the side for you. But when you just come to the table and you're saying, hey, we offer DUI advice, and there's nothing else special there, you could say you've got 30 years of experience, but that really, at the end of the day, that only tips the scales a little bit. It's hard to actually make that work. Whereas on Facebook, normally we can say something that makes us different. In our space, it's hard to do it. Whereas with the content, though, and you go that route first, you know exactly what they want, and you can say something that's not edgy. You're just giving them information, and it actually works really well, and it's proven. So anyway, do what you want, but that is everything I wanted to cover in terms of criminal defense marketing, how you can do things for your business. Of course, there's a lot of ways to get referrals. You can do, get referrals from a lot of sources. That works very, very well. But in addition to that, I will be laying my base this specific way so that when people, because this works as well, and it works very, very well once it's set up. It is difficult to get it set up initially, but it works so predictably when it does. It'll work and work and work, and you're going to get hundreds of leads a month this way in a bigger market like Chicago, Miami. If you're in a smaller market like Omaha, Nebraska, top 50 city, it's going to bring at least dozens of leads a month for you. 50, 100 leads a month. And even if you're in a small city, 100,000 people a month, you're still going to get upwards of 50 leads a month. And they're going to be, let's just say 100,000, 50 leads a month. You're still going to do fairly well. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.